Hey there guys, so I want to thank you for joining today's live stream. Just want to make sure everything was up and running. So as far as today, I know I usually mention some announcements before we get started with everything, but I really don't have anything in particular to mention. So I'll likely just go ahead and get started. If I do come up with something, I will mention it towards the end. But I'm excited to talk about today's sort of presentation live stream because it is an important topic. It's a really important topic as it relates to, clients that I work with or, potential clients that I've sort of reached out to or anybody who is really into their fitness journey. This is really a big topic that's usually discussed. It's either muscle gain or it's fat loss. And I know in the past I've talked a lot about sort of muscle gain and sort of how you can, focus on that particular strategy or focus on the strategy of getting to that muscle gain goal. So, what I'm going to be talking about today is talking in broad terms on fat loss. I'm going to be talking a little bit about strategies and different things that you can do to sort of get to your fat loss goal. So, that's mainly what I'm going to discuss today. And I'm going to go over quite a bit of different topics today. So, sort of keep that in mind. Take notes of what I sort of discussed today and think about some of the things that I go through, some of the sort of strategies and tips that I'll be talking about, because a lot of these are important and they're all essential to helping you to sort of lose fat. And this can also contribute to, of course, once you're losing that fat, you can move on to, gaining muscle. So it can be a contributing factor to lead to another goal that you may have in mind. But fat loss is a big thing I want to discuss today, and it's of course the main topic. So there's going to be a lot of different topics I'm talking about today under the umbrella of fat loss. The first thing is going to be nutrition and diet. The next is exercise and physical activity. The third one, metabolism and energy balance. The fourth, lifestyle. The fifth, behavior and mindset. The sixth, supplementation. And the seventh will be plateau and progress tracking. So I know these are a lot of topics. However, I am going to condense them into a way, as I usually do, to make them more digestible and to allow you to sort of take, really quick tips and strategies from each of these topics. So sort of keep that in mind. There is a lot that I'm going to be discussing. However, I'm going to try to condense it in the best possible way for you guys to be able to, implement these today. So let's go ahead and get started. So, of course, the main thing when it comes to sort of reaching a fat loss goal is to really hone in on your nutrition and diet. It is the core part of getting to that fat loss goal. Muscle gain does have somewhat of a contributing factor when it comes to nutrition, but when it comes to fat loss, nutrition and diet is really essential to monitor. So when you're in going into sort of focusing on a fat loss goal, what you want to do is with your nutrition and diet, you want to create a calorie deficit. So a calorie deficit is crucial for fat loss. So consuming fewer calories than your body needs prompts it to utilize stored fat for energy. So determine your daily caloric needs based on your age, sex, weight, activity level, and goals, and aim to consume around 500 to 1,000 calories less than that to achieve a sustainable and gradual fat loss. Pay attention to the balance of macronutrients in your diet, which include carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Have a moderate protein intake, which is important for preserving muscle mass in a calorie deficit. Include lean sources of protein such as poultry, fish, legumes. Legumes is basically like beans, any kind of protein of that nature. That could also include nuts or any sort of protein like that. And tofu in your meals, of course, that's not something that you necessarily need, but what I'm focusing on is having that moderate protein intake into your diet. Another thing is to have a moderate carbohydrate intake. So by prioritizing complex carbs, whole grains, fruits, and vegetables over refined carbs such as sugary snacks, white bread, pastries, anything of that. Opt for healthy fats like avocados, nuts, seeds, and olive oil, which provides satiety. So provides the ability to stay full, basically, and support overall health. So mainly, what you want to do to sum this up when we're talking about nutrition and diet is you want to be in a calorie deficit. So you want to determine your needs based on sort of your weight, your activity level, and aim to consume 5 to 1,000 calories less to achieve that gradual fat loss. Focus on your macronutrients, which is your carbohydrates, your proteins, and your fats. So you want to have a moderate protein intake. Of course, that's to preserve that muscle mass while at the same time being in that calorie deficit. So you want to consume lean proteins. You want to be in a moderate carbohydrate intake, which prioritizes complex carbs, those whole grains, fruits, and vegetables, clean carbs. And then as well, you want to have healthy fats, avocados, nuts, seeds, olive oil, anything of that nature when it comes to fats. So having that balance, being in that calorie deficit, and having that moderate protein intake, moderate carbohydrate intake, and of course consuming those healthy fats. So sort of keep all this in mind when you're focusing on that fat loss goal, because this is one of the key elements that you'll need to get there. The next thing is exercise and physical activity, which obviously is an important part of a fat loss goal. So, engaging in physical activity increases your energy expenditure, helping you create a calorie deficit necessary for fat loss. When you burn more calories than you consume, your body taps into that stored fat, which I just discussed previously, reserves to meet that energy demand. So, one thing that's not very much discussed is that with resistance training, of course, that's, weightlifting and body weight based exercises. It can be actually valuable for fat loss because it helps to preserve that muscle mass. So when losing weight, there's a risk of losing both fat and muscle. However, by incorporating strength training exercises, you signal your body to retain muscle mass while primarily shredding fat. So keep that in mind. When you're focusing on a fat loss goal, resistance training can be an absolute important part of that process because you're going to help, you're not going to lose all that fat and you're not just going to lose the fat, but you could also lose the muscle. So when you prioritize your resistance training into your fat loss goal, you won't lose that muscle mass. That muscle mass is going to help in aiding you with shedding that fat. So sort of keep that in mind. So having more muscle can also slightly boost your resting metabolic rate, which also allows you to burn, allows you to sort of have an ability to burn more calories at rest, which can support fat loss efforts in the long run. So keep that in mind. Resistance training is not just for muscle gain, that it can also contribute to fat loss. Because you're helping to build that muscle, you're aiding into, that calorie burning fat loss process because you're retaining that muscle while also sort of building your resting metabolic rate. It's something that you need to keep in mind. When you put that into consideration with your nutrition and diet, when you're staying in a calorie deficit and you're consuming your lean proteins, you're you're having that moderate carbohydrate and fat intake, and then you combine it with this, resistance training, it's all going to work together if you can just create a routine around, focusing on a little bit of resistance training, keeping a focus on your diet. Again, like I've discussed in the past, a lot of this is all about creating a balance between, two different things. And when it comes to any sort of goal in mind, really, it requires, keeping a balance between multiple things. So just keep that in mind that resistance training is not just about muscle gain. It can contribute a whole lot to fat loss as well. So the next thing we're going to discuss is a little bit expanding upon somewhat of the benefits of fat loss as well as the different changes that can happen when you integrate fat loss into, or when you focus on a fat loss goal, I should say. So metabolism and energy balance. Metabolism refers to the complex set of biochemical processes that occur in the body to convert food into energy. So basal metabolic rate, BMR, represents the number of calories your body needs to perform essential functions at rest, such as breathing, circulating blood, and maintaining organ function. NEAT encompasses the energy expended through non-exercise activities such as walking, fidgeting, and other daily movements. So that's also known as non-exercise activity thermogenesis. That's what NEAT stands for. Energy balance refers to the relationship between the calories consumed through food and the calories expended through physical activity and metabolic processes. So when we're talking about all of this and the basal metabolic rate, NEAT, and energy balance, one thing you need to keep in mind, and this is kind of go into what I'm going to be talking about next, is sort of making changes to your lifestyle to focus on your fat loss goal. So keep these terms in mind because it's going to relate to what I'm going to continue to discuss. So, lifestyle changes. So, what you want to do is if you're focusing on a fat loss goal, nutrition and exercise, as well as metabolism, is going to help aid with that. But you need to keep in mind that lifestyle changes should be made as it relates to your fat loss goal. So when you're focusing on a particular goal and you have it dead set in your mind that this is what you want to do and this is what you want to get done, you have to have some things in mind to help you get there. So surround yourself with a supportive network of family and friends or like-minded individuals who share that similar goal. Their encouragement and accountability and shared experiences can provide valuable support during your fat loss journey. Have a support system around you when you're sort of focusing on your fat loss journey. It's going to help you to get you to that goal, and it's not going to seem as a daunting process when you're going through the process of getting there. So understand that fat loss is a gradual process, and I try to mention this many times with any clients that I work with that it takes time to get to your goal. There may be times where you reach a plateau. There may be times where you just feel that it's not working, but it all just is a part of the process. It's a part of helping you to get there. It's a journey to get there. So keep that in mind. So make sure that you always know that getting to that fat loss goal is a gradual process and sustainable results will take time. Focus on making consistent, healthy choices rather than seeking quick fixes or drastic measures. Embrace the journey and be patient with yourself as you develop long-lasting habits. So like I mentioned, a lot of this is all about balance, but it's also about creating this routine and creating consistently better choices throughout your day. Being aware of the choices that you're making and creating that consistent routine with exercising, with focusing on your nutrition. And once you get into the habit and once you build that habit, you're going to get there in no time. You just have to focus on where you're supposed to be. Focus on sort of the process, the journey, rather than the end goal at the time. Because when you're focusing too much, down the road, you're not going to stay in the now to where when you're focusing on making these consistent, healthy choices, it's going to help when you're laser focused on where you're at now. And like I mentioned in the past, when you create goals, you want them to be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. You want them to be as precise as possible and to make it easy. Well, not easy, but make it challenging yet attainable to get to that goal. So sort of keep that in mind that it is a journey, that you do need to sort of develop a support system to help you get there. So behavior and mindset. So this kind of goes back into that lifestyle changing aspect of it. So we're talking more about mindset, whereas in the beginning we were talking essentially about the physical aspects that you need to keep in mind. So focusing on your nutrition and diet, as well as what type of physical activity you need to be doing, being aware of your metabolism. So that's sort of the physical attributes. And when we're focusing on this, we're going to this next stage, which is lifestyle changes and behavior and mindset. This is all focusing more on the mental aspects and emotional aspects when it comes to getting to your fat loss goal. So, self-efficacy. So, developing a belief in your ability to make positive changes is crucial. Cultivate a mindset of self-efficacy, which is the belief that you have the capability to succeed in your fat loss efforts. When you believe in your ability to make healthy choices and overcome obstacles, you are more likely to persist in your efforts to achieve that goal. So, develop a belief in your abilities. When you're having sort of those doubts, focus on that mindset of why you're here, why you have the capability to succeed in this goal. And keep that in mind. Always remember that when you're focusing on your goal. Motivation and commitment. Establishing strong motivation and commitment to your fat loss goal is essential. Clarify your reasons for wanting to lose fat, whether it's improving your health, boosting self-confidence, or enhancing overall well-being. Use these motivations as fuel to stay connected and dedicated to your goals, especially when faced with challenges. Go back to this multiple times when you're having doubts and you're going through the process of trying to get to that fat loss goal. Keep that in mind over and over again. That's something that I had to do myself when I'm focused on muscle gain. When I really started getting serious with, weightlifting. I had to constantly remind myself why I'm doing this. What is my motivation for doing this? Why am I so committed to this? It's because of getting to that end goal. It's because there's going to be so much better things as long as I stick to it, stay disciplined, and stay committed to it. Goal setting. I just discussed this a few minutes ago. So goal setting is really essential, and I mentioned this to all my clients, any potential clients I talk to. So you need to set specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound goals related to your fat loss journey. Clearly define what you want to achieve and break it down into smaller milestones. This helps provide a sense of direction, focus, and accomplishment along the way. Start with getting to those smaller goals, and then you'll slowly get to that huge goal that you've been sort of trying to get to over this long duration of time. So just do it in these small milestones, and you're going to see the progress come. You just need to keep your mind focused on the journey aspect of it. That's the whole important part of this, is focusing on the journey. Having that self-efficacy, being motivated and commitment, and creating those smart goals. So supplementation. This goes into somewhat back to the physical aspects of it, which should have been more towards the beginning of the presentation, but we're going to go to this. It's somewhat separate, but this is something that you can do along with your nutrition and diet to keep in mind. So supplementation. So there's three different things that I'm discussing here. Caffeine is the first one. So caffeine is a stimulant that can increase energy levels, enhance focus, and boost your metabolism. It may help to suppress appetite temporarily. However, its effects can vary among individuals, and it's important to be mindful of your caffeine intake and potential side effects like jitteriness or sleep disturbances. Caffeine it's something to keep in mind. It can increase your energy level, enhance that focus, and it's going to boost your metabolism at the same time. Of course, you don't want to have a huge amount of caffeine. You like with anything else, you want to have it in a moderation. So protein supplements can be beneficial, such as whey protein or plant-based protein powders can be beneficial for fat loss. Protein is known for its ability to promote satiety. So it's basically promoting the ability to stay full. I can never say it right. So it helps to preserve that lean muscle mass and support muscle recovery and growth during a calorie deficit, including adequate protein in your diet, whether from whole foods or supplements, can be helpful for fat loss. So you don't necessarily have to take a protein supplement. If you lack in protein, it's important to be aware of the protein you're taking. Focus on, if you're taking protein, get it from those whole foods. But if you're not, you can use protein, whey protein, or plant-based protein as a supplementation for your protein intake. So like I mentioned before with nutrition and diet, you do need to have a moderate protein intake of healthy base proteins. So another thing, you can increase your dietary fiber intake, which is going to support that fullness, help with digestion and overall weight management. Fiber supplements like psyllium husk or glycosamine can help increase feelings of fullness, reduce hunger, and regulate bowel movements. However, it's important to gradually increase fiber intake and drink plenty of water to prevent gastrointestinal discomfort. So keep that in mind as well, that fiber can also be beneficial. So plateau and progress tracking. So we pretty much summed up basically all of the basics when it comes to nutrition and diet, exercise, and then having the right mindset. So as well as talking about that supplementation. So what we're going into next is talking a little bit about when you're reaching a plateau, as well as progress tracking. Or, both in the same sort of vein when we're talking about both the plateau and progress tracking. So assess non-scale progress. Don't solely rely on the scale to measure progress. Consider other indicators such as body measurements. And I mention this all the time when I'm on, any sort of call with clients when they don't see progress, or if I'm on a call with a potential client, I always mention it. Don't solely rely on the scale. Do body weight measurements. Look at your clothing, how your clothing is fitting, see progress photos, notice your changes in energy level as well as your overall well-being. Those are different things that you can keep in mind that really shows your progress. It's not just about the body weight scale. There's so many different aspects that you can track and that you can notice progress from if you just pay attention to them. These non-scale victories can provide a more comprehensive view of your progress and motivate you to keep going. So this assessing the non-scale progress, this is very important for plateaus. If you're going into a moment in your fat loss journey where you feel like you're hitting a plateau and you feel like you're not progressing, then you need to be aware of those indicators, such as body measurements or your clothing or taking progress photos, so that you know that you are actually progressing to your goal. That body weight alone is not enough. There are different things that you can track to know that you're progressing to your goal. So when you reach that plateau, keep that in mind. Along with the plateau, review your routine. If you've been following the same exercise routine for a while, your body may have adapted to it. Shake things up by adding a variety to your workouts. This is one thing I do with my clients. When they're in a workout routine, we go through phases. And the reason for those phases is because your body is adapting to those workouts. And even for myself, I always change up my workouts. I never do the same thing. I may be consistently doing the same exercises for a couple weeks, but I'm transitioning to something different because it's going to help to, shock my body basically. So incorporate different types of exercises, try new activities, increase the intensity or change the duration of frequency of your workouts. This can challenge your body and help break through that plateau. That's another thing to keep in mind when you're going through a plateau. Change it up. Increase the intensity, change the duration, increase the frequency, whatever it takes, change it up. Track your food intake. Continue tracking your food intake even if you've been doing it for a while. Sometimes we tend to become more lenient where the portions or slip into old habits. Monitor your food intake and it can help you stay accountable and identify any areas where you may be consuming more calories than you realize. Keep that in mind. Keep all of this in mind. This goes more in vein with progress tracking, whereas the two other ones was mainly talking about plateau. This all integrates together. Always focus on that non-scale progress. Make changes to your routine when necessary, if it's needed. If you're not working with a trainer, as always with me, I always change up my routine with my clients to help and aid with, getting through that plateau. Track your food intake. Make sure you're keeping track of that because that's going to help you stay on track and stay held accountable. Alrighty, so that's pretty much all I have for you guys today. Again, it's just a big balancing act when it comes to fat loss. So again, when we first talked, we talked about that nutrition and diet. Being in that calorie deficit, having that moderate protein intake, moderate carbohydrate intake, as well as that moderate fat intake. We went into physical activity and we talked about with that physical activity that weightlifting can be very essential when it comes to a fat loss goal because you're helping to maintain that muscle mass while also being able to burn calories. So keep that in mind. We talked a little bit about your behavior and mindset, talked about supplementation, what kind of supplements you can take, whether it be caffeine, protein supplements, dietary fiber, as well as talking about what you can do when you're in a plateau. Make sure you're monitoring your progress. Make sure you're doing non-scale, monitoring your non-scale progress, which means not looking at your body weight scale, but focusing on your measurements, how your clothes are fitting. Focus on that. And then as well as, of course, tracking your food intake. So sort of keep all that in mind when you're going towards a fat loss goal, as well as, of course, having that support system around you and having that mindset knowing that it does take time. So I wanted to mention that as well. But keep all of this in mind when you're focusing on a fat loss goal is that it does take time. That is a sort of journey, a progression that you have to go through, and that you may at times hit road bumps, but you've got to be aware and stay vigilant when you're going through it so that you know when you get there, okay, this is just a temporary thing. If I just stay consistent, then I'll get to where I want to be. So keep that all in mind, that it is this process that you have to go through to get there. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. You can DM me here on Facebook. I also have a phone number, which is 931-434-6880. You can also email me at Brandon Parton, BRANDON, Parton, PARTIN, 95 at gmail.com. And there's other platforms I'm on. You can message me on any other platform, whether it be Instagram or whether it be Snapchat, any other platform. Feel free to ask me any questions that you have on anything I discussed today on fat loss. I really hope that this helped you guys, and I really hope this gave you value, guys, because I really want to do everything I can to give you the information and to give you stuff that you can take with you and go when you're going throughout your day, making adjustments to your daily life. It's really important that you just keep this all in mind, especially if you have that fat loss goal that you're really trying to pursue. If you want to learn more about my online program, feel free to reach out to me and I can help you get started with that. But other than that, guys, I really want to thank you for everything that you've supported me with all of my content that I've been sharing. It really means a lot. I'm really trying to push this stuff out as more as possible. So thank you guys for taking the time. I will have another live stream tomorrow, which is actually expands on today's topic. So what I'm going to be talking about tomorrow on YouTube, which I will share a link for, on YouTube, what I'm going to be talking about is primarily focusing on the negative effects if you have excessive body fat. So there's a lot of different things I'm going to discuss tomorrow. So definitely check that live stream out. Again, it's an expansion of today, but this is going to be talking about more of the negative side of things. So keep that in mind. But it will, give you some advice and ideas on what you need to be focusing on as far as getting to your fat loss goal. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next live stream.